The knock on the door came at midnight, and when I opened it, there stood my 9-year-old niece Lily, clutching a worn envelope like it held the weight of the world. "Uncle Sebastian," she whispered, her eyes wide with secrets too big for her age. "Mom says it's time you knew why she really turned her back on you and Gabriel." Rain glistened on her small shoulders under the Seattle porch light, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. 10 years of silence from my sister Emily crashed over me like the Puget Sound waves I could hear in the distance. I pulled Lily inside, her sneakers squeaking on the hardwood, and called for Gabriel, who appeared from the kitchen still holding a mug of tea, his face shifting from surprise to protective calm in seconds. Gabriel set the mug down and knelt to Lily's level, his voice steady the way only a high school teacher could manage. "Hey kiddo, you're safe here. Let's get you warm." While he wrapped her in one of our throw blankets, my mind raced back to the Texas heat of our childhood, where Emily had been my shield long before I understood what I needed shielding from. I was 15 the first time the bullies cornered me behind the gym at Dallas High. They had found the folded pages I'd torn from a magazine, images of men that made my stomach flip with both terror and longing. "Freak," they sneered, shoving me against the chain-link fence. Emily, already 20 and working her first job at the local diner, showed up like an avenging angel. She marched right into the principal's office, lied through her teeth about a family emergency, and drove me home in her beat-up Civic. "They don't get to decide who you are, Seb," she told me that night on the back porch, fireflies blinking around us. "I've got your back. Always." That promise carried me through the next 3 years of secret glances at boys in the hallway and the crushing fear that Dad would find out. He was the kind of man who quoted scripture at the dinner table and believed real men fixed trucks and hunted deer. Mom stayed quiet, but Emily never did. She covered for me when I slipped out to meet my first crush at the park after dark. She even slipped me $20 once so I could buy a prepaid phone to text him without Dad seeing the bill. "You deserve to feel what love feels like," she said, hugging me tight before I left. Those words planted something hopeful in me, something that survived the loneliness of small-town Texas. Lily's voice pulled me back to the present. "Uncle Seb, Mom wrote you letters." She kept them all. Gabriel met my eyes over her head, his dark brows furrowed with the same worry I felt. We had built a life here in Seattle, far from the dust and judgment of Dallas, but the wound Emily left still ached on rainy nights like this. I took the envelope from Lily's small hands, the paper soft from years of handling. Gabriel made hot chocolate while I stared at my sister's familiar handwriting on the outside. "For Sebastian. When you're ready." My chest tightened. Whatever was inside had the power to rewrite a decade of pain, and I wasn't sure I was ready to let it. The next morning, after Lily fell asleep on the couch, Gabriel and I sat at the kitchen island with coffee steaming between us. "We call Emily," he said quietly, "but only after we hear Lily out. Whatever this is, we face it together." His hand found mine, thumb tracing the wedding band I'd slipped on his finger 5 years ago in a courthouse ceremony with only our closest friends as witnesses. That simple touch reminded me why I had survived the betrayal. Gabriel had been my anchor when Emily's silence nearly drowned me. But the little girl sleeping in our living room carried answers that could either heal us or tear open scars we had carefully stitched shut. I thought back to the summer I turned 22 and left for the University of Texas in Austin. The campus felt like freedom. No dad watching my every move, no small-town stares. I met Gabriel in a literature seminar on queer voices in American fiction. He sat 2 rows ahead, dark curls catching the light, laughing at the professor's dry jokes. When our eyes met during a discussion about hidden identities, something clicked. We talked for hours after class at a coffee shop off Guadalupe Street. He told me about growing up in California with parents who marched in pride parades, and I told him about Emily's protection and Dad's sermons. "You don't have to carry that alone anymore," Gabriel said, his smile soft and sure. By the end of the semester we were inseparable, stealing kisses in the library stacks and planning futures that felt possible for the first time. Emily had been thrilled when I called to say I was bringing someone home for Thanksgiving my senior year. Finally, a guy who deserves you, she teased over the phone. I believed her. The drive from Austin to Dallas with Gabriel felt like the beginning of everything. He held my hand the whole way, singing along to the radio, making me laugh until my sides hurt. But the moment we walked through the front door, the air changed. Dad's handshake was too firm, Mom's smile too tight. Emily hugged me hard, then Gabriel, but something flickered in her eyes I couldn't name. Dinner was polite tension wrapped in turkey and mashed potatoes. Dad asked Gabriel what his father did for a living, and when Gabriel mentioned teaching, Dad grunted. Later that night, Emily pulled me aside in the hallway. He seems good for you, Seb. Just be careful. 3 months after graduation, I came out to the family over a video call. Gabriel sat beside me, his presence steady. Emily's face froze on the screen. Dad exploded. Mom cried. But Emily said nothing. 2 weeks later, she called me alone. Sebastian, I love you. But I can't support this. It's tearing the family apart. And I have to think about my own life now. The line went dead before I could answer. That was the last time I heard her voice for 10 years. Lily stirred on the couch, rubbing her eyes. Uncle Seb, can we talk now? Gabriel squeezed my shoulder and left us alone. The little girl who looked so much like Emily at that age climbed onto the stool beside me and opened the envelope. Inside were folded letters and a faded photo of the 4 of us at my high school graduation, Emily's arm around my shoulders. Mom said to start with this one, Lily said, handing me the top page. My hands shook as I unfolded it. The first line read, I never stopped protecting you, Sebastian. I just had to do it from a distance. The words blurred. Gabriel stood in the doorway watching, ready to catch me if I fell. Whatever Emily had written, it was about to rewrite the story I had told myself for a decade. The story of a sister who chose prejudice over blood. But Lily's next words changed everything. Grandpa made her choose, Uncle Seb. And she chose me so you could be free. The letter trembled in my fingers as Lily's words hung in the air like the Seattle mist outside the window. Gabriel moved closer, his hand resting lightly on my back, grounding me the way he always had since that first awkward coffee date in Austin. I read aloud so he could hear too, my voice cracking on every other sentence. Emily wrote about the night after Thanksgiving when Dad cornered her in the garage. If you keep supporting your brother's sin, he had snarled, I'll make sure you and that baby you're carrying lose everything. The house, the inheritance, even the diner job I helped you get. Emily was 3 months pregnant with Lily then, newly married to a man whose construction company depended on Dad's connections. She had cried in the letter, confessing how she lay awake that night weighing my happiness against her unborn daughter's future. In the end, she chose silence. Not because she believed Dad's hateful words, but because she believed protecting Lily meant protecting the only future she could control. Gabriel exhaled slowly. She sacrificed her relationship with you to keep you safe from worse. The realization hit like cold water. All those years I had painted Emily as the villain who abandoned me when I needed her most. But the letters proved she had been watching from afar. Anonymous deposits into my account the first year Gabriel and I scraped by in a tiny Seattle studio. A care package with my favorite Texas salsa that arrived without a return address the week I landed my first design job. Even a subscription to an art magazine I loved, renewed every Christmas. She had stayed invisible so Dad wouldn't suspect. Lily watched us with solemn eyes. Mom said Grandpa found out about you and Gabriel before you even told everyone. He hired someone to follow you in Austin. When he showed her the pictures, she knew she had to act fast. I remembered the sudden coldness in Emily's voice on that final call. It wasn't disgust. It was desperation. She had begged Dad to let her handle it her way, promising to cut me off if he promised not to send me to the conversion program he kept pamphlets for in his desk drawer. The same program that had ruined their cousin years earlier. Emily's betrayal had been theater, performed to buy me time and space to build the life Dad wanted to destroy. I stood up, pacing the kitchen, memories flooding back in sharp detail. The day Gabriel proposed on Alki Beach at sunset, the ring simple and perfect. I had called Emily out of habit, forgetting for one foolish second that she no longer answered. The voicemail I left went unreturned. Then the wedding, small and joyful, where Gabriel's parents flew in and embraced me like their own son. I had toasted to chosen family that day, never knowing Emily was sitting in her Texas kitchen rereading old photos and crying into her coffee. The letters detailed every milestone she had celebrated alone. My first gallery show, Gabriel's Teacher of the Year award, even the day we adopted our rescue dog Max. She had saved newspaper clippings and printed screenshots of my social media, hiding them in a shoebox under her bed. Gabriel pulled me into his arms right there in the kitchen. "This doesn't erase the pain, Seb, but it changes the story." His voice was the same steady tone he used with students who came to him struggling with their own identities. Lily tugged at my sleeve. "Mom wants to see you. She's sick, Uncle Seb. Not dying sick, but the doctors say stress made her heart weak. She said the truth might fix both of you." The room spun. 10 years of anger, therapy sessions, nights where Gabriel held me while I raged about the sister who chose everyone else over me. All of it built on a lie Dad forced her to live. We spent the rest of the morning reading every letter together. Emily wrote about the guilt that kept her awake, about watching Gabriel and me grow closer through mutual friends on social media. She described the day Lily turned 5 and asked why she didn't have an Uncle Sebastian like the other kids at preschool. That was when Emily started planning this moment, waiting until Dad passed away last spring so the threats died with him. Lily had begged to be the messenger because she wanted to meet the uncle her mother spoke of in whispers. "She calls you her hero," Lily said softly. "The one who was brave enough to love who he loved." Gabriel made pancakes while I processed the weight of it all. The smell of butter and vanilla filled the apartment, normal and grounding. Max the dog curled at Lily's feet, sensing she needed comfort. I thought about the version of myself who had driven out of Texas with Gabriel in the passenger seat. Radio loud, pretending the ache in my chest didn't exist. We had stopped in New Mexico for the night and talked until dawn about building a life where our love didn't need hiding. Gabriel had promised me then that family wasn't always blood, and I had believed him because believing anything else hurt too much. Now blood was sitting at my kitchen table eating pancakes with syrup on her chin, handing me back the pieces of my heart I thought Emily had shattered forever. The morning light slanted through the windows, catching the gold in Gabriel's curls and the determination in Lily's eyes. For the first time in years, I felt the possibility of something I had long given up on. A bridge back to the sister who had once risked everything to protect a scared 15-year-old boy who only wanted to love without fear. By afternoon, we had booked a flight to Dallas for the 3 of us. Gabriel canceled 2 days of classes, telling his principal it was a family emergency. Lily called her mother from my phone, voice bright. "He read the letters, Mom. He's coming." I heard Emily's sob through the speaker before Lily hung up. The sound cracked something open inside me. Gabriel packed our bags while I sat on the bed staring at the photo from graduation. In it, Emily smiled like she meant it, like she believed we could survive anything together. Maybe we still could. The plane ride was quiet except for Lily's excited chatter about seeing the Space Needle again. Gabriel held my hand the whole way, thumb stroking my knuckles the same way he had during our first turbulent flight together years ago. I leaned my head on his shoulder and let myself imagine the moment I would stand in front of my sister again. Not with anger, but with the truth that her sacrifice had given me the freedom to become the man who could love Gabriel openly and build the life we now shared. The clouds below looked like a blank page, and for the first time I believed we might write a new chapter on it. When we landed in Dallas, the heat hit like memory. Lily ran ahead to the arrivals gate where Emily waited, thinner than I remembered, eyes red but bright. She looked past her daughter straight at me. Gabriel stayed a step behind, giving us space. Emily's voice broke first. Seb, that single syllable carried every unsaid apology and every hidden act of love. I crossed the distance and pulled her into a hug that felt like coming home after a war I never knew we were both fighting. The hug lasted longer than either of us expected, Emily's shoulders shaking against mine while Lily bounced on her toes beside us. Gabriel waited patiently, his calm presence the steady heartbeat I had come to rely on. When we finally pulled apart, Emily looked at him with something like gratitude mixed with regret. "Gabriel," she said softly, "thank you for taking care of him when I couldn't." Gabriel simply nodded, the way he did when students thanked him for believing in them. No grand speeches, just quiet acceptance. We loaded into Emily's SUV, Lily chattering about school and how she had practiced what she would say to me for weeks. The Texas landscape rolled by, flat and familiar, and for the first time the sight didn't fill me with dread. At Emily's house the air smelled of fresh coffee and the lavender candle she always burned when she was nervous. Her husband Mark had taken the day off work and greeted us with awkward handshakes, clearly unsure how to navigate 10 years of silence. Lily dragged Gabriel outside to show him the treehouse Dad had built before he died, giving Emily and me the living room. She pulled out more letters, this time ones she had never sent. Page after page detailed the nights she drove past my old apartment in Austin just to make sure my car was there. The way she had cried when she saw the announcement of our engagement online. "I wanted to call every single day," she whispered. "But Dad still checked my phone records. Even after you left Texas, he had friends watching." I told her about the nights I had stared at my phone willing it to ring, about the therapy sessions where I learned to stop waiting for her approval. Gabriel came back inside with Lily riding piggyback, both of them laughing, and the sound loosened something tight in my chest. We spent the evening around the kitchen table sharing stories, careful at first, then easier. Gabriel described the day I finally agreed to marry him, how I had cried in the car afterward because part of me still believed family meant blood and blood had rejected me. Emily reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I was wrong to let you believe that. I thought keeping distance would protect you both. Turns out it only protected Dad's pride." Later that night, after Lily was in bed, the four of us sat on the back porch under the same stars I had once wished on with Emily. Mark excused himself early, sensing we needed the space. Gabriel leaned back in his chair, letting me lead. I asked the question that had burned for years. "Why didn't you just tell me the truth back then?" Emily stared into her wine glass. "Because telling you would have meant risking Lily's future." Dad wasn't bluffing, Seb. He had already contacted that conversion place. I overheard him on the phone booking a consultation for you. The only way I could stop it was to convince him I was on his side. So I became the sister who turned her back. It was the hardest performance of my life. Gabriel spoke then, voice low and kind. "You gave him the freedom to become the man I fell in love with. That matters more than the years we lost." His words landed softly, but they carried weight. I realized in that moment that my growth hadn't happened despite the betrayal. It had happened because of the space Emily unknowingly created. In Seattle, I had learned to stand on my own, to build a chosen family, to love Gabriel without apology. The pain had forged resilience I might never have found if Emily had kept fighting Dad openly. The next morning we visited Dad's grave. The headstone was simple, nothing like the man who had ruled our lives with fear. Emily placed flowers down and stepped back. "He was wrong about so many things," she said. "But he was scared too. His own brother came out in the 70s and the family cut him off. He died alone. Dad spent his life trying to make sure history didn't repeat itself. Only he repeated the worst part. The revelation settled over me like morning dew. The hatred hadn't come from nowhere. It came from unhealed wounds passed down like heirlooms. Understanding didn't excuse it, but it made the anger easier to set down." Gabriel slipped his arm around my waist as we walked back to the car. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded because for the first time I actually was. The weekend unfolded in small steps. Lily showing us her school projects, Emily cooking my favorite brisket, late-night talks where we filled in the missing years. Each conversation chipped away at the wall I had built. Gabriel and I took long walks around the old neighborhood, pointing out places where my teenage self had hidden who I was. Now I walked openly, hand in hand with the man I loved, and no one stared. The town had changed a little, or maybe I had. On our last night, Emily pulled me aside on the porch. "I'm proud of the life you built, Seb. Proud of the man you became without me. But I hope you'll let me be part of the next chapter." Her voice cracked on the last word. I hugged her again, longer this time, and felt the last pieces of resentment dissolve. Gabriel watched from the doorway, smiling that quiet smile that always told me everything would be all right. Lily hugged us both before bed, whispering, "I knew you'd forgive her, Uncle Seb. Love always wins in the end." The flight home to Seattle felt different. Lily had decided to stay with her mom but promised summer visits. Gabriel rested his head on my shoulder as the plane climbed through the clouds. "We survived worse," he murmured. I thought about the boy I had been and the man I had become, about the sister who had loved me enough to break her own heart to save mine. The story wasn't pretty, but it was ours, and it was finally whole. Back in our apartment, Max greeted us with sloppy kisses. Gabriel opened a bottle of wine while I unpacked. We sat on the couch, legs tangled, talking about the future. Maybe a trip to Texas for Christmas. Maybe inviting Emily and Lily to Seattle for spring break. The possibilities felt endless because the fear that had shadowed them was gone. I looked at Gabriel, really looked at the man who had stood beside me through every storm, and felt a surge of gratitude so strong it brought tears to my eyes. "Thank you for never giving up on us," I said. He kissed my forehead. "Thank you for letting me love you out loud." That night I dreamed of fireflies and back porches, of a 15-year-old boy who was scared but never alone. When I woke, Gabriel was already making coffee, humming the same song we had danced to at our wedding. The sun streamed through the windows, bright and forgiving, and I knew the journey that started with a midnight knock had led us exactly where we were meant to be. Weeks turned into months, and the bridge between Seattle and Dallas grew stronger with every phone call and video chat. Emily's health improved once the weight of secrets lifted. Her doctor even commented on the change during her next checkup. Lily started sending us drawings of the four of us together, stick figures holding hands under a rainbow she carefully colored. Gabriel framed one and hung it in our home office, right beside the photo from our wedding. The simple act grounded me every time I sat down to work on a new design project. My art had always been a way to process feelings I couldn't voice, but now the pieces I created carried lighter colors, bolder lines, stories of redemption instead of loss. Gabriel's students noticed the change in him too. He came home one afternoon grinning, telling me how a quiet sophomore had stayed after class to thank him for the unit on identity and belonging. "I told them about us," Gabriel said, loosening his tie. "Not names, just that love looks different for everyone, and that's okay." One kid actually teared up. I pulled him close, proud of the man who turned personal pain into purpose for others. Our life together had always been steady, but now it felt expansive, like we had room to breathe in ways we hadn't before. One crisp Saturday we drove to the Olympic Peninsula for a hike, the kind of day where the mountains reflect perfectly in the lakes. Halfway up the trail, Gabriel stopped and turned to me. "Marry me again," he said suddenly. I laughed, thinking he was joking, but his expression was serious. "Not a big wedding. Just us, Emily, Lily, and whoever we want. A renewal where your sister can actually be there this time." The idea bloomed instantly. We spent the rest of the hike planning it, imagining Lily as flower girl, Emily reading a poem, Max wearing a bow tie. By the time we reached the summit, the date was set for next summer in a small clearing overlooking the water. Back home, I called Emily that night. Her voice cracked with joy when I told her. "I'd love nothing more," she said. "And Seb, thank you for letting me be part of it." We talked for an hour, the conversation flowing easy now, no landmines under every sentence. She told me about the therapy she had started, about learning to forgive herself for the choices she made. I told her about the nights I still woke up reaching for the phone to call her before remembering I finally could. The honesty felt like healing. Winter arrived with holiday lights along the waterfront and the first snow dusting the city. We hosted a small Friendsgiving with our Seattle circle, the same friends who had stood by us during the years of silence. Midway through dinner, Gabriel raised his glass. To family, the one we're born into and the one we choose. Everyone cheered, but my eyes found his across the table and I knew he was thinking of Emily too. Later, when the guests left and the apartment was quiet, we curled up on the couch watching old home videos Gabriel's parents had sent. In one clip from our first Christmas together, I looked so young, so guarded. Gabriel paused the video. "Look how far you've come." I squeezed his hand, grateful for every mile. Spring brought new beginnings. My design firm landed a big contract for a local LGBTQ center, and I poured my whole heart into the branding. Colors of pride, symbols of strength and community. Gabriel helped after school, offering teacher insights on what would resonate with younger generations. One evening, while we worked side by side at the dining table, Lily video called from Texas. She had lost her first tooth and wanted to show us the gap in her smile. Emily appeared behind her, waving. "We booked our flights for the renewal," she announced. "Mark's coming too. He wants to meet the man who makes my brother so happy." The screen blurred a little as tears pricked my eyes. Gabriel leaned in so they could see both of us. "Can't wait," he said, and meant it. The weeks before the ceremony passed in a happy blur of fittings and flower orders. Emily arrived a week early, Lily in tow, and the apartment filled with laughter and Texas accents. We took them to the market, the aquarium, everywhere that had become part of our story. One afternoon, Emily and I walked Max along the waterfront while Gabriel and Lily fed the seals. "I'm sorry I missed so much," she said quietly. I stopped and faced her. "You didn't miss the important parts. You protected the parts that let me get here." She hugged me right there on the sidewalk, tourists stepping around us, and for the first time the embrace felt complete. The renewal day dawned clear and warm. The clearing we had chosen overlooked the sound, mountains in the distance like old friends. Lily scattered petals down the short aisle, her dress the color of spring leaves. Emily read a poem she had written herself, lines about bridges and second chances that made everyone reach for tissues. When Gabriel and I exchanged new vows, promising to keep choosing each other through every season, I glanced at my sister. She was crying openly, but smiling, and I knew the circle was finally whole. Afterward, we danced under string lights, Max weaving between our legs, Lily spinning until she was dizzy. Gabriel pulled me close during a slow song, his forehead against mine. "Best decision I ever made," he whispered. I looked around at the faces that mattered most, blood and chosen, and felt a peace I had chased for years. The betrayal that once defined me had become the catalyst that taught me the true meaning of love, loyalty, and the courage to forgive. Summer faded into a golden autumn, and life settled into a rhythm that felt both new and deeply familiar. Emily and Lily visited again for Thanksgiving, this time bringing Mark and a suitcase full of Texas pecans for Gabriel's famous pie. The apartment smelled of cinnamon and roasted turkey, laughter echoing off the walls as we all crowded around the table. Lily insisted on saying grace, her small voice thanking Uncle Seb and Uncle Gabe for showing me that families can grow bigger than we think. No one missed the way Emily wiped her eyes or how Gabriel squeezed my knee under the table. The meal stretched long into the evening with stories traded across generations, old wounds mentioned only as proof of how far we had come. Work kept us busy. Gabriel's school started a new support group for LGBTQ students, and he asked me to speak at their first meeting. Standing in front of 20 teenagers who reminded me so much of my 15-year-old self, I shared pieces of our story without the heavy details. "The bravest thing you can do is keep showing up as yourself," I told them. Even when the people who should love you make it hard. Afterward, a girl with purple hair hugged me and whispered that my words gave her courage to come out to her mom. Driving home that night, I felt the full circle of healing. The boy who once hid now helping others stand tall. Gabriel and I started talking about expanding our family. Not biologically, but through fostering or adoption. One quiet Sunday, we toured an agency downtown, holding hands while caseworkers explained the process. The idea of giving a child the kind of safe, open home we had built together felt right in every way. Emily cheered when we told her over video call. "You two will be incredible dads," she said, and the pride in her voice meant more than I could express. Winter brought the first real test of our renewed family bond. Dad's estate finally settled, and Emily called one evening sounding shaken. "There's a letter he left for you, Seb. I just opened it." She read it aloud, voice trembling. Dad had written it years earlier, full of scripture and regret he never voiced while alive. He admitted the fear that drove him, confessed he had watched me and Gabriel from afar through mutual acquaintances, and even admitted he had been wrong about many things. The letter ended with a simple request: "Tell your sister I'm sorry I made her choose." Emily cried on the phone, and I cried with her. Gabriel sat beside me, silent support as always. We decided together to frame the letter and place it in our living room. Not as a shrine to pain, but as proof that even the hardest hearts can soften in the end. Christmas in Seattle was magical. Snow fell lightly outside while we decorated the tree with ornaments collected over the years, including a new one Lily had made. Two men holding hands with a little girl between them. Emily and Mark flew in for the holiday, turning our apartment into a full house. On Christmas Eve, we sat by the fireplace, stockings hung for everyone including Max. Lily read The Night Before Christmas, while the rest of us listened, the warmth in the room matching the warmth in my chest. Later, when the others had gone to bed, Gabriel and I exchanged private gifts. He gave me a custom sketchbook filled with notes he had written over the years, each page dated and signed. "For every time I wanted to tell you how much I love you," he said. I gave him a framed map of the places we had traveled together, with new pins ready for future adventures. New Year's Eve, we hosted a small party. Emily danced with Mark, Lily spun in circles with Gabriel, and I watched from the kitchen feeling overwhelmingly grateful. At midnight, we all stepped onto the balcony to watch the fireworks over the city. Gabriel pulled me close as the sky exploded in color. "Here's to more years of choosing us," he whispered. I kissed him under the falling light, knowing every sacrifice, every misunderstanding, every moment of doubt had led us to this perfect ordinary happiness. Spring arrived with the renewal of life in every sense. The adoption process moved forward, and we began meeting potential matches. One evening, a social worker showed us the profile of a 6-year-old boy named Noah who loved drawing and dogs. Gabriel and I looked at each other and knew instantly. The paperwork started, visits scheduled, hearts opening wider. Emily sent a care package full of children's books and a note that read, "Can't wait to be Aunt Em to another amazing kid." Lily already called herself Big Cousin and practiced introducing herself in the mirror. Through it all, the bond between Gabriel and me deepened in quiet ways. Morning coffee together, evening walks with Max, late-night talks about dreams and fears. The man who had once been my college crush had become my partner in every meaning of the word. He still left me notes in my sketchbooks and still made me laugh until my sides hurt. And I still looked at him across rooms and felt the same flutter I had felt in that Austin classroom all those years ago. Summer returned, bringing with it the second wedding we had dreamed of. The clearing by the water was even more beautiful than we remembered, wildflowers blooming along the edges. Lily walked down the aisle first, scattering petals with serious concentration. Emily followed, reading the poem she had rewritten with new lines about second chances and the courage to love openly. Noah, now officially ours after months of visits and court dates, held Max's leash and grinned at everyone in his tiny suit. When Gabriel and I stood before the officiant exchanging vows again, the words carried new weight. We promised not only to love each other but to keep choosing honesty, forgiveness, and growth. Emily wiped tears as she watched, and when we kissed, the whole group cheered loud enough to startle the seagulls. The reception spilled into the afternoon with laughter, dancing, and stories. Mark told embarrassing tales from Emily's youth that had everyone howling. Noah fell asleep on Gabriel's shoulder halfway through the cake, and Lily declared herself the best flower girl ever. In a quiet moment, Emily pulled me aside. "I'm so proud of the family you built," she said. "And I'm grateful you let me back in." I hugged her tight. No words needed. The sister who had once protected a scared boy now celebrated the man he had become, and the circle felt complete. Life after the renewal settled into beautiful routine. Noah started kindergarten in the fall, Gabriel helping with homework while I sketched at the kitchen table. Max became his constant shadow. Weekends often included video calls with Emily and Lily, planning summer trips and holiday traditions. The pain of the past still existed in memory, but it no longer defined us. It had become the foundation for something stronger. A family built on truth, sacrifice understood, and love freely given. One crisp October evening, Gabriel and I sat on the balcony watching the city lights. Noah was asleep inside, Max curled at our feet. Gabriel took my hand. "Remember the night Lily showed up?" I nodded, smiling. "Best midnight knock ever." We sat in comfortable silence, the kind that comes after years of weathering storms together. The journey from betrayal to belonging had taught us both that love isn't perfect, but it is worth every hard choice and every act of courage. As the stars came out, I thought about the 15-year-old boy I had been and the man I was now. The sister who had loved me enough to break her own heart. The partner who never wavered. The niece who delivered truth at the perfect moment. The son who now called us dad. Every piece fit. The story wasn't about the pain anymore. It was about the healing that followed, the family we chose and the family we reclaimed, and the love that refused to stay hidden. Is a sacrifice made out of love still a betrayal if it causes years of pain? True or false?